My name is Peach Bite. My pronouns are she, they, and I am a technical director at Metacosm Studios.
Hi, I'm Kong. Pronouns are he, him. I'm the studio lead for Studio Penrose.
Hi, my name is Quinster. My pronouns are he, him. I'm the cinematographer at both Metacosm Studios and Studio Penrose, and welcome to the virtual production panel. Without further ado, I'll let these two take the stage.
All right, so hello, we're here to talk to you about filmmaking in VR and its intersection with LGBTQ identity. So we're going to start with kind of an introduction. What exactly is VR filmmaking? So, short of it is, VR filmmaking is leveraging VR or XR technology for producing film. That can include character motion, camera tracking, and even visual effects. There are some limitations, like subtle movement of faces is a little difficult. There's also some latency issues. We're all over the internet. And camera control is also all done by one person. On a traditional film set, there's maybe a few people controlling the camera, but for example, like doing a dolly on a track, that's a little difficult, but that's a technical thing. But yeah, there's a few limitations, but overall, there's a lot of benefits as well. You can see on the slide here, we have a few films that are actually filmed here in VR chat. There's Backrooms the Anime, Ulterior Motives, Penrose Protocol, VR Bodies. You can go see these right now on YouTube. Well, after the panel, but they're there on YouTube. All right.
Awesome. So today we'll be discussing actually the Penrose Protocol. It's a film that me and Peach worked on together. It's one of our favorites that we've done. And basically, the Penrose Protocol is an action thriller film that follows two main characters, April, who you see on the left, and Lilith on the right, who have a dispute in ideologies. April is on the side of lawful justice, while Lilith is on the side of vigilante justice. And handling the corruption, crime, and fighting within the city of New Millennia are kind of the plot points to this film. The verbal battle they start out with actually ends up leading to a physical confrontation at the end of the film. What makes this film kind of special for us is we tried quite a few new VR filming techniques with this film, including a continuous tracking sequence, a shootout sequence, as well as a fight sequence, all of which are pretty difficult to do in VR, which we figured out pretty quickly. And these things are things that we've somewhat worked on before, but not together in a single film. Oh, come on. Yay, okay. The process. So, the way we kind of create these films actually follows a relatively traditional film, process. And so we started out with a concept or a brainstorm. We wanted to create something more serious, something more high stakes compared to our previous works. And so we were at the VRCon Film Festival, I think it was actually in early 2023 is when that festival happened. And we watched a lot of these films and we thought, whoa, okay, there's some cool like fighting stuff, there's some cool cinematic stuff, things involving cities, city landscapes. And we were like, okay, we want to give that a shot. And so this sort of film isn't usually what we go for, at least I go for. We kind of worked on emotional type things before, but this was a new one for us. And so we thought it'd be a challenge. And so keeping fighting in mind, we wanted to create characters that would fight one another, kind of in an intelligence battle, but also a physical one. And so in order to make these characters make sense, we needed to create a world, our cinematic universe. And so the city of New Millennia was featured in this film. And that city is kind of our signature. And so it's the first film that takes place in there. And once the world was set, we allowed the characters to develop. And so we started scripting, storyboarding. And the storyboarding process is what I want to talk about. And I'll throw that one to Peach.
All right. So, some background. For filming in VR, you have to choose a set. So there's two main approaches to doing sets for VR filmmaking. You can either choose one of the many different worlds that people have uploaded here in VR chat, or you can opt to make your own. Of course, it is more time-consuming, and it's also more expensive if you're getting assets or you're commissioning the entire thing. But you do have full control, and you can see here on the stage or on the backdrop, we have on top a this is our storyboard. It was pretty rough. I did it in Blender, and it just showed where the camera was going to be and what the scene was going to be like, and we used that, of course, for the actual camera shots and cinematography, but also to build out the world, to place everything and see where everything needs to go. So, yes, storyboarding. It's a fairly traditional process, and it really helps for things like this. That's something that we did for this project actually. Uh, yeah. There we go. Yeah, but it's not just worlds we have to worry about. Of course, there's characters with costumes. Any kind of costumes you put on characters. Of course, it's just like traditional avatar making. You have to do your clothing swaps and everything. But in addition to clothing, there's also props. Any props that characters hold in hand, it's best to do them on the actual avatar rather than having them in world. And it's because you can form the hands and do any kind of character interactions a lot more fluently. And yeah, you can see here on the slide, for like the guns in this scene that we had, and we also have facial expressions. Mentioned before, facial expressions are a little difficult. Very subtle things. It's very important in filmmaking, but to get around that kind of hurdle, we have some systems in place. We'll do. Personally, I do a puppet system so that I can control the face and the facial expressions really finely, and that of course means you have to edit the avatar. So those are all some of the pre-production processes.
So once pre-production's through, we go on to rehearsal, prep, and then I guess execution. For this film, quite a few rehearsals were actually needed. The opening sequence, which takes place in the film, is actually a full continuous shot, meaning that there's no cuts that you notice in the scene. And so that required us testing a few technologies that we kind of developed for this film. One was like using a dolly that allows a user to sit on the dolly and like kind of move around a set of points, kind of like a dolly camera you'd see in real life. And we also had our main body actor, Lazy the Dino King, running on a treadmill in real life, which actually looks pretty good in game, surprisingly enough. And so that was kind of fun to practice and see. The fight sequence that we had at the very end of the film was our most difficult because of the complexities of VR chat and the virtual world, I guess. Trying to high-five each other becomes impossible because if we try to do that, our hands go through each other. And so we had to figure out ways to fix that latency. And so our choreographer, Crispy Wisp, who is in the audience somewhere, there you are, awesome job, helped design the scene, write it, act in it actually. And after a lot of practice, we filmed and made what you see in the Penrose Protocol. And so this entire pre-production and rehearsal process is filled with a lot of collaboration, and it allowed us to learn about each other, learn about how to grow as film directors and developers, and it was quite the experience. Cinematography was also fun to mess around with this film. We planned our shots in a certain way to help convey certain emotions. Just as an example, I'm going to use the fun little pointer thing here. On this scene, we have our character on the left here, April, who is shown in a reflection, whereas our character on the right is shown with a blank wall. In the film, our character, April, on the left, is someone who is self-aware of their problems, sort of what happened in their past, while we show the other character, Lilith, not very aware of that, and hence we kind of have her facing a blank wall with no reflection. So we do a lot of that sort of stuff with our filmmaking because it helps us tell our stories. And so, on to the next slide. Following along the lines of cinematography, color grading, tones, lens flares, all of these things help us convey emotion. Colors are very powerful, are very important in wanting to tell your audience certain, I guess, emotions within the film. So in this specific film, we use a lot of green and blue, as well as orange. This is a nod to Hong Kong fight films, which was actually an idea that Peach suggested for the color grading of this film, which I really love. So normally we use kind of blue, dark tones for more seriously and more emotionally done film or scenes, and we use red and orange for more beautiful or love type scenes. And so we show our interiors a lot with orange and warm because we kind of typically associate interiors in these scenes with like comfort, at least in this film. and with the outside being kind of scary, so there's bluish tones. And so, on to the next slide.
Oh, all right. So I imagine those in the audience are saying, "Wow, that's great," but what does that have to do with the LGBTQ community? And glad you hypothetically asked. So, I think one of the biggest topics these days is about representation in media and uh, exactly why that matters and everything, or all that is a little out of scope for this presentation. But some of the biggest points for that conversation are what stories are being told and who's telling these stories. So, uh, kind of related. I'm sure it's something most of you know. Movies are pretty expensive to make. Like, budgets are in the millions for films, and uh, this goes towards things like camera, lighting, sets, props, all those kinds of things. And then you throw it on top. You have to do marketing, and if you're getting all this investment, they expect a return on investment, which unfortunately, all these kind of affect what can be made, since those are kind of strings tied. So, uh, for some background, for myself, I back in 2016 when I was starting my transition journey, I started doing a lot of research, reading, history, theory, all that kind of stuff. And uh, as I was doing this presentation, something came back to me. I'd read this book, Sister Outsider, by Audre Lorde. She's a Black lesbian poet from New York City. Shout out New York. But she wrote in this book. She's talking about the cost of materials. She is both a poet and she writes prose, and she's comparing the two. And she asked the questions like, who are our sculptors, our painters, our photographers, and I have to, also ask who are our filmmakers. So, I'd say there's a long-standing history about not or refusing silence. I'd say in the LGBTQ community, and part of that not staying silent is telling your story. Making your voice heard. So we'd like to turn that into a kind of call to action for all of you in the audience to tell your story.
Yeah, so as Peach mentioned, it's really important to speak up through film. We know how important media is nowadays compared to how the media used to be, which it kind of didn't exist back then. It's really easy for us to go on YouTube to look at videos. It's really easy to go on Twitter to look at videos. Typically speaking, video content is really important to spreading awareness and spreading acknowledgments and information. And so we want you guys to try it out. Filmmaking is not restrictive in this setting. There's not the same limitations that you would experience with filmmaking in real life. VR is accessible to everyone, especially in VR chat, even more so than most people expect. Generally speaking, I think people get afraid of pulling out the camera because we think, oh, it's going to be really hard to design this. How do I edit? How do I film? I don't know how to use a camera. Well, these are all tools that are available to us in-game. Something that's important to note is I don't have a film background in any capacity. It took me a while to learn how to use VRC Lens, to write stuff, to storyboard stuff, but it just requires you to pick up the camera. Thankfully, VRChat has a wonderful camera built into the game that has a lot of the functionality of a real camera, and so we urge everyone to pick up their camera, to tell your story, to tell your experiences to the rest of the world. Again, I emphasize this because it's super important. VR film is accessible, and it allows us to relay our own experiences to others. I know it sounds repetitive, what I keep saying, but I've been going around along with Peach, talking about this and talking about how important it is for quite a while. So
Yeah, and I do have to mention, just in the existing space, LVR Chat's a pretty inclusive, diverse space, and the filmmaking space is no exception. Like for myself, I found a strong community when filmmaking. Back in I think I started 2020, 2021 early, and it's just been a very great experience. Meeting all the different people in the space, and I'm. It's just a very welcome change, I guess. It's like, I guess to summarize it, I don't have to. I don't have to be a trans filmmaker. I can be a filmmaker while I'm trans, which is it's a pretty nice experience. And I'd say that's I'm not alone in that. But no.
all right. So looking ahead, with that being said, what are some things that we're excited for? In the future, we know technology will advance. But it's not just technology that will advance. It's also as more people get into creating films, videos, narrative storytelling will improve. And as that happens, more people will get into it because they'll see the films that are released on YouTube, on Twitter, and think, oh, that's super cool. We want to create a welcome space for that to allow more stories to be told in that sort of way. And so, alongside the narrative storytelling that will improve with time, technology will also grow. As film becomes more popular, it's not just the hardware that will advance, like face tracking or like better tracking in general. It'll also be things in game, like prefabs and tech that creators will make that help supplement our filmmaking. And so we're super excited for that. Actually, I need to bring this up because I've been seeing a lot of it lately. So recently, Peach released a prefab for lighting, which I'm really happy because lighting is super important in film, again, in conveying emotions. But also, I've seen other creators release like this camera dolly system that just got released. I don't remember the creator's name, but it's just another example of something that's released for film lately. And so, again, as more exposure, I guess, comes around because of these films, we will get more support. And you all will get more support as our stories are, again, shared. And so I guess that concludes that talk of improvement and things that we'll be looking ahead for.
Yeah, so with everything you guys have been looking to do and with the projects you've worked on, what do you guys have planned for your future projects? What do you guys have in store for next?
All right. Yeah. So right now, kind of tying in with the emotional storytelling aspect, I'm working on a film called Our Precious Autumn, and this one's a lot more heavy. It's much more emotional than the previous films I've worked on. I'm glad to see a lot of our team members in the crowd even here that are going to be working on this project. But it tells the story of a mangaka who is overworked, who is burnt out, and it's a story about our artist finding their passion once again and coming to terms with the struggles that they've had in the past, as well as their suffering. Again, it's a pretty heavy film, but we want to lead by example to say that, hey, we can tell these very emotional and personal tales through film and VR. So that's what I'm working on. How about you, Peach?
Oh, so so personal. I haven't actually publicly announced it yet, but so I talked a bit about the possibilities of making things in VR that you couldn't make in real life a little earlier, and I kind of want to explore that. So I have a lot of personal experiences with a lot of other trans people, and my own mostly real life experiences as well. I kind of want to put those to the screen. I want to, or I was researching a few stories a while back, and um, so there are a lot of romance stories involving trans people, but what I noticed was there aren't a lot that explore like romance between two trans people, and I kind of wanted to write one, except it would have used this kind of loving another trans person to learn to love yourself. It's kind of a metaphor. It's kind of very personal to me. But yeah, I haven't necessarily written it out yet, but yeah, that's like what I would like to work on upcoming. And I have to mention, at the studio we're also working on Macrams anime, other thing I'm working on as well.
All right.
Very cool. Very awesome.
I think we can probably open it to Q&A.
Yeah. You guys want to open the
next time?
Q&A?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
All right, with that, so you guys are free to come and ask some questions, and these two will give you their responses to that. So we can do it one at a time if we could, and that'd be very, very awesome. So anyone can come up first? Oh,
I have question.
yeah.
So,
Mhm.
so basically, you mentioned about like whole technology thing, like a technological advance in filmmaking.
Mhm.
But have you ever considered that AI can actually make like can replace human work in acting as it gets really closer to recreate human type of like human emotions, like emotional reactions based on the on the things that we provide AI to teach off, or it isn't a case to actually be concerned.
Yeah. So AI is a hot topic for a lot of people, and I think, at least for my personal experience, I don't think AI will fully replace our emotions, our body acting, our movements. I like film that is created by humans, created by us, because we show emotion into our story writing, our creativity. And so, at least for me personally, I don't think AI will ever take that from us, so to speak.
Yeah, I'll mention, filmmaking, just storytelling is a lot of, intention, actually, uh, having things you want to put on the screen, telling your story. And, AI, I personally, I see it, like, it can be a tool, like, any other tool that saves you time and work, like, doing things in, for example, like Photoshop, you're not manually moving around pixels, you're doing, using your tools, but you still have the artistic intention behind doing these things. I don't think that's ever going to really go away, because that's like, to me, like the core of making art.
Yes, good question though.
Yes, thank you.
Do you have any other questions?
Oh.
I have a question. Oh, sorry. Did
Ooh.
someone else want to
Yes.
go?
No, go ahead.
What if you don't really have other people to like make your projects with? Like, is there ways you can like do it like kind of solo,
Yeah,
depending
so
on what you're making?
one strategy we tried, we actually, back when I started, for our first project, now called, into the metaverse. We just had a few people, but even by yourself, like, what we started out with was, just the simple built-in camera, and us, body acting in front of it. And there are people who make solo films, but we got a concept out for what we wanted to do, and from there, released it. We got people who were interested in the idea, and from there, we kind of built a team. So, that is one strategy you can do. You can also just do it as just one person. I think there was a film that was released a while ago. I think it was Papers, Please. It was like a recreation in a VR chat. You can find it on YouTube, but that film was actually, I think, filmed by just one person filming themselves, as an example.
okay, thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, because normally you see it's like a group of people, you kind of need to collaborate, and not really everyone has the option to like find people to collaborate with.
Yeah, for sure. But you do have options. You're here in virtual reality.
Yeah, thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, of course.
Any other questions?
Oh, Crystal Rose. I saw
Oh.
your hand.
Thank you very much, first off, to both of you for coming out today. Personally, I had a couple questions about the new movie you guys are in production on, Autumn. Or This is Autumn. First off, I was wondering if there is currently a casting call for any of the characters within that film. And if you could, for us, tell us what kind of person are you guys specifically looking for when it comes to the character specs for the main role?
Oh, so at the moment we're still in the production writing stage, and so we haven't made a casting call just yet. But when we get to that stage, we'll definitely make the call. Our main character and there's a lot of characters in this, so it's a little hard to pinpoint. But I can't say exactly what I'm looking for just yet. But don't worry, the information will be conveyed in the casting call. So soon.
Thank you. Thank
Yes.
you so much, King Lulu. And
Of course.
also to you too, Peach Blade, again for coming out today.
Oh, thanks for attending.
Thank you.
Of course.
Oh, yes. Bounce.
You had a
That's true.
question?
Ghosty, did you have a question earlier? You stood up? Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. As I mentioned for the upcoming story that I want to write and eventually put to the screen. Yeah, I want to explore those kinds of themes. It's not a often explored theme in VR movies, but I'm hoping to change that because there's a lot of potential, I think. But yeah.
Very nice. And I imagine there's some more questions through the audience, but I'm going to hold you guys for just a moment. We're going to end the virtual production panel, but I do want to let you guys know that we do have a voice team panel in about an hour from now. So just as a heads up. But once again, thank you guys so much for attending this panel, and massive thank you to Kong and Peach for coming out and talking to us about filming in VR and just a lot of really cool things with that. So thank you guys so much. And we hope to see you guys very soon.
And thank you to the Trans Academy. You guys are wonderful. You guys have been a wonderful crowd. Thank you so
Yes.
much for hosting us.
Thank you for having us.